Welcome to the POMcast with Steve Willis, your independent, unbiased, and unbought source for Ole Miss athletics. Good morning. October 15th, Thursday, Ole Miss versus Arkansas in Fayetteville at 2:30 on the SEC Network. Tune in for that if we have it, because as you know, COVID showed up in a big way in the SEC this week. Florida and LSU was postponed, as was Missouri and Vanderbilt. Ole Miss has an outbreak, and Nick Saban and Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama, tested positive. So we don't really know what the standing is. We know the Florida situation is pretty serious. We know the Vandy situation is pretty serious. But those are important to know going forward. So anyway, follow us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis and at Old Positively. Hit us up on Facebook. Like us at facebook.com/POMcast or join our Facebook group at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Positively Ole Miss and hit the bell for notifications so you know when we're going live. That'll come in very handy in a couple of months. And you can also follow us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. Thank you so much for your patronage. If you are an audio person, which right now most of you are, you can hit us up at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, or Pandora. So basically, our whole thing is we are where you are already. You don't have to go to a second location. We're never going to try and extort money from you. This is about free information. This is about doing this differently. This is about not being such a weighing thing on your pocketbook. You don't need it. There's no need. Nothing is going on at Ole Miss where you need to pay money for information. Everything is already available. You're just paying money for an opinion of someone that probably doesn't even watch the games, that is about as uneducated on the sport of football as anybody could be. Because they've actively tried to be uneducated. Because educated to them means, I don't know, some sort of a bias. So understand that what we are going to do here is just provide the information for free. We're never going to ask you for money, and we're never going to ask you to go to a special location or a second location. So, hit us up. Subscribe, do all that stuff, because in 5-6 months it's going to be all video, and this is going to basically be a TV show. And that what we're doing right now is getting used to the breaks, getting used to the talking, because I went through the brain surgeries more than a couple of months, about a year ago, and it just has some lingering effects that you have to knock the rust off on. So we're doing this every day. We're talking, and so it's working out pretty well. At 2 o'clock today, Around the SEC is coming out with special guest Israel Troop, the former Georgia wide receiver under Mike Bobo. He's here to basically break down games. He's throughout the whole show. It's pretty cool. So it's 4 of us this week. We do our normal thing. We talk about COVID. We break down the game of the week, which this week is Georgia and Alabama if it happens. And we do rapid fire the rest of the games and picks. It's a pretty good thing. It's a good way to spend an hour. We try not to go over an hour for any podcast. You have better things to do. So, all right. As you guys probably heard, COVID came for Nick Saban yesterday. He tested positive. He's asymptomatic. But we're dealing with a bit of an SEC outbreak. We thought we were immune for some reason, and surprisingly, the virus just didn't care. So, with this happening, Nick Saban's obviously in that category. We're going to be fine. But Bobby Bowden beat this last week, and he's like 90. So, it's not a death sentence to get this. But if the odds are, let's say you're in an age group and the odds are 1 in 20, that's probably not palatable to the average person. You don't want to play a football game if that guy has a 5% chance of dying. That's why everybody is so careful on this. It's not about necessarily survival. It's just that 5% chance and the scariness if it happens. Like if something were to happen to Nick Saban, that would be justification for shutting down college football. It would all go away. So we need to take this seriously. We need to wear a mask. We need to social distance. We need to do the whole 9 yards. Or else we are going to lose this. We are on a path to losing this. Having a 6 or 7 game college season. With them having to shut it off in the middle. Not fulfilling our TV contracts. If you are listening to this, we have to take this seriously. We don't have to live in fear, but we do have to respect other people and what that means. You don't want to wear a mask? Okay, that's fine. Stay home. Don't come into a contact with another person. Otherwise, you are a biological weapon, and they're playing the odds game with this. They're rolling the dice. They didn't have a choice about it. The simple lack of respect for other people right now is ridiculous. Everybody can't be this selfish. They just can't. All right, anyway, segment 1 is in the books. Come on back for a little more POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Hey, welcome back to the POMcast. I'm your host, Steve Willis, right here on Positively Ole Miss. You can catch us on our YouTube channel, watch us on Twitch. You can see it on Facebook. And we're also on Periscope, which is being broadcast through Twitter. So all of those are available if you want it. Sorry, I went on a little bit of rant the first hour, but the simple lack of respect for other people is just infuriating. And it's not about necessarily a virus, it's just about the me culture. Doesn't matter. I don't want to wear a mask. It's not about you. It's just not about you. And luckily, I went out and early voted yesterday. My ballot was cast, and all through the line, people were wearing masks, which there's no extremists in that group. So that made me feel better about humanity. Maybe the people that are just refusing to do this are just the loudest, but they're not necessarily the most. It's a vocal minority. So, anyway, we have Arkansas and Fayetteville this weekend. 2 mirror images on offense, 2 not so mirror images on defense, and a COVID problem with Ole Miss, because that defensive side of the ball really needed that. They needed a little help. Now, apparently, hopefully a new player will come in and just be a gamer. This is a chance for probably Damon Clowney and Mark Britt to make a name for themselves. And you just have to see. I am still angry about this mask situation and everything, and the SEC outbreak and the lack of respect for it, because that's the reason it's here. It's the lack of respect. So Felipe Franks is come a long way. He's playing like a senior quarterback in a system. It's a pretty safe system. You know, if you look at what Matt Corral is doing, Felipe Franks isn't really doing the same thing, but he did throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against Auburn, which is nothing to shake a stick at. But Felipe Franks is not the same quarterback as Matt Corral, because Matt Corral has other aspects of his game. His elusiveness, his pocket awareness. He's coming in really handy. He also has a little bit of gunslinger in him, which eventually is going to bite him. But if we can get away with it for a couple of games, if we can get a couple of wins, it's probably worth it. But, like I said, Matt Corral, he's by far the better of the 2 quarterbacks. But Felipe Franks is having a heck of a year. Now, if you look at wide receiver, they're serviceable. If you look at running back, they're serviceable. If you look at offensive line, they're probably a little bit away. They play hard, but they're not quite there yet. They're not the dominant unit. Now, and Arkansas, and let's, like I've told you, every player is a system player. Period. So you had Chad Morris go to Arkansas with a bunch of Brett Bielema's pro-style players. There's not much more of a system jump from what Brett Bielema was doing to what Chad Morris wanted to do. So it was going to take time. It was going to take more than 2 years. Arkansas decided they wanted this style of offense and they wanted to run this. You needed to give him the patience for it to happen. The first recruiting class was a transition class. The second one was actually quite good. And then the third one happened last year, was another transition class, basically. And it messes with your depth whenever you have a major system overhaul like that. You end up with a mishmash of players that are just basically built and recruited to play different things. There's 3 different systems recruited at Arkansas at the moment. 3. You've got the ground and pound that is going to be your seniors, probably. Yeah, I think it's your seniors and possibly redshirt juniors. Chad Morris is going to be juniors and sophomores, and freshmen are going to be Sam Pittman's, Kendall Briles, and Barry Odom. 3 different type players. I mean, if you look at this stuff, it is apparent why they didn't win a game before this year since 2017. Now, Kendall Briles, what we're doing offensively, Kendall Briles is doing the same thing. It's a more flexible offense. It's designed around tempo. It's really quite simple, but it's got a larger footprint of who can do it. Now, Brett Bielema as offensive linemen are probably long since gone because they probably couldn't do it. At 340, you're probably going to be sucking wind pretty quick. But other players, you can find it fits. But it's a big difference between Brett Bielema's Wisconsin-style football and Chad Morris's Clemson spread. I mean, that's a wide berth. The only thing more, instead of Brett Bielema's offense, it was happening at a service academy. That's the only bigger jump. So, for people interested in Arkansas or apathetic of Archer, well, they're probably excited at the moment, and they should be. That's the reason for the struggles the past couple of years. You shouldn't have hired Chad Morris if you didn't have the stomach for turning over the roster over a period of time. Coaching changes don't happen for nothing. If you think this has to be different, you need to have the stomach for it. There's not just one style of football player. If you do that, and if you fall for that, you're going to struggle. And it's going to be a routine death spiral. There's hundreds of systems in college football, which means in reality, there's probably hundreds of players that can be ranked in different spots because whichever system they're being recruited to depends on their ranking. We did the 2-star ranking example of the service academies this week. Why are they 2-star? Well, why is Navy beating everybody? Well, it's not just because of discipline. No, it's because those players fit that system and they're the only ones running it. So there's a pattern, or there's a number of players that fit it that Army, Air Force, and Navy have exclusive access to. And that's the truth. Dan Marino would not be good in a spread offense. Troy Aikman, as he found out, would not be good running the wishbone. It's all different. We're talking Hall of Famers, Dan Marino and Troy Aikman. Because they went to the NFL where they were the system fit during a time when there were 1 or 2 basic systems in the NFL. Everybody did the same thing. You had the Bill Walsh system and you had basically the Bill Parcells system. Now, Don Coryell throwing it all around with the San Diego Chargers back in the early 80s, late 70s, that kind of disappeared. But in college football, we've always been very unhomogeneous with our systems. And we've always been more willing to do things different ways. And I think that's just because there are more teams. There's so few teams at the pro level that it lends itself to copycatting what is successful. Even though right now, and this is a college thing, the air raid has come to the NFL. I mean, Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes are running some semblance of it. they were air raid college quarterbacks in college. There's a fit. I think Jordan Herbert, whatever. The quarterback at San Diego is more of a fit as a pro-style passer. He was less of a fit running the spread offense that was at Oregon. But now he's in the perfect fit because, honestly, he would be the guy back in the 80s. He's the pro-style quarterback. They're comfortable with that. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, they created this system for him because in a normal NFL system, he would struggle. But that since they were willing to do that, he's an MVP. Every player is a system player. If you get nothing else from this podcast, get that. If you look at Ole Miss's defense, a bunch of slower 3-4 players are in a system that is requiring them to cover more space. They're really a step slow at this point. Now, is it paralysis by analysis? Who knows? I mean, these are SEC athletes recruited to play defense, and they were serviceable by the end of the year last year. Who knows? All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis, stick around.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, last segment of the day, POMcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thanks for joining us. We went off on a little bit of COVID rant. We talked a little Felipe Franks earlier, and then broke down into systems and why it matters. And LSU is going through the same thing at the moment with a system change. They're going from a 3-4 to a ground covering 4-3. It's a lot of trouble for the linebackers. They had opt-outs. They had problems. So it happens. They have talent. They've been in top 10 recruiter ever since Ed Orgeron has been there. And they're just struggling. Well, the problem is these are plotting 3-4 people asked to cover more space than they have the ability to do. They were a perfect fit for what they were doing last year under Dave Aranda. This year, not so much with Bo Pelini. I mean, the only way out is to turn over your personnel. And if you have no stomach to do that, if you can't handle the rebuild, I mean, that becomes a why did you do it question to coaches. That becomes a so sorry to fans. But LSU has given up over 600 yards and over 400 yards in 2 games this year. The one game they didn't was to a true freshman quarterback. And it's just nuts. It's just crazy. But everything is about system. Everything is about what you're doing and the fit of players, of the personnel in that group. Everything. There is no other thing, other reason. People will tell you we're not talented. They're saying we don't have SEC players. That's not true. Last year, there was a middling run defense. Two of the starters on the defensive line at the beginning of the season was Takaris Tisdale and Ryder Anderson. They're still here. That means the only one that's really left is Benito. And we have a space eater. But the problem is, in this defense, they're asked to move a little bit more. They're asked to cover more space. And a lot of times, they're a foot or two away. Like I said, that could be paralysis by analysis. I don't think they're plotting that slow. I think they're just taking times thinking because there was no spring and no fall camp. And this has just bit them worse than you would have expected it to. Everything that is going well on the offensive side of the ball, because honestly, the personnel on that side of the ball fit what Jeff Lebby wanted to do, what Lane Kiffin wanted to do. That's why Lane Kiffin took this job. You can look at that offense and see. But that's the reason Lane Kiffin's here. Because he knew we had some dudes. But on the defensive side of the ball, there's going to be a build. And there is going to be a build, but it's going to be a relatively quick build. Why is it going to be a relatively quick build? The one-time transfer rule. I mean, they signed 6 last year. Jacob Springer, Otis Reese, Dean Leonard, Tavius Robinson. Let's see, did I say Jacob Springer? Either way. But there's going to be more. If you're a group of 5 defensive player at the all-conference level and want to prove that you can do it at this one for the next level, we're right here. You can see why they went after Fabian Lovett and why they went after Jerry and Jones, and they were real quick to turning it over this year. They're going to turn it over next year. No eligibility clock this year, by the way. So if Sam Williams wants to come back, he can and have a full season, full normal season. Tavius Robinson's going to be better because he's in year 2, coming from university system in Canada. Dean Leonard, the same thing. So, and then you have the safeties of, the star of Otis Reese or Jacob Springer at safety. They're dogs in the run game. They really are. Jacob Springer was an all-conference player at Navy. Otis Reese was a top 100 player. Kind of playing out of position at Georgia because the system wasn't correctly seen. He's Tony Connor 2.0. Put him at star and just let him wreck stuff. Him not being eligible this year, honestly, him or Jacob Springer, the whole 9 yards with what's going on currently, is ridiculous. Just ridiculous. But I think you will see a trend toward transfers. I mean, you might see us only signing 20 players or less in the high school signing day. Get the players you want, grow them, then use transfers to fill actual holes of this year's team. Because this year's team matters more to fans, to coaches. It's just going to matter more than developing a high school player. You're probably not going to have time to do it anyway, so you have to fill those spots. Anyway, the POMcast, I'm Stephen Willis. Hope you enjoyed the show. You have a good day. See you tomorrow.